me know in the chat that you have audio coming through. Let me know that you've got audio coming through as we go deeper into today's session. All right, I think we're good. I think we are good, but I didn't actually do a test today. I just thought, you know what, let's just jump in. Let's just jump in because we're already running later than we planned. So I just thought let's jump in. All right, so if we are getting audio 100% smooth and silky in today's live, just write yes in the chat. Let me know that the audio is running all the way live. Now, if the audio wasn't running live, I know it's running live now, so we're going to jump straight into what we've got to share with you so we don't waste any of your time. So without further ado, as I mentioned a moment ago to you, we are going to be sharing in this live the 5 costly mistakes that stop good incomes becoming great wealth. And this is something that even if you don't discover for someone else, I guarantee you, you're going to want to discover at least for yourself. We're going to be sharing why earning more won't make you wealthy unless, keyword unless, maybe throw in the comments the word unless you change what happens next. Here's some of the things we're going to be uncovering in this live. We're going to be uncovering why your current income cannot create colossal wealth alone. That's the first thing we're going to be uncovering, why your current income cannot create colossal wealth alone. The second thing we're going to be covering is the literal 5 costly mistakes quietly dissolving your income, dissolving, diluting, depleting your income. You might have a good, healthy income coming through each month to you, but you might still be asking yourself the question, how comes it feels like no wealth is coming through to you? We're going to be answering that on this live. If you're excited about that, just write I am in the chat. We're also going to be talking about how you can be using today's income as tomorrow's wealth building engine. And that's going to unlock for a number of you a doorway, a path through in order for you to start to get your true wealth coming through. Last but not least, we're going to be going into the framework shift, which literally can shift you from earned income to lasting cash flow. If that's of interest in some, if that's of interest, there you go. I used to speak. Now I'm trying to talk about it. If you are interested in discovering the framework shift from earned income to lasting cash flow, just write that's me in the chat so I know that's you. Nothing like some proper tea up in the house. Let's go. Feel free to just write that's me in the chat so I know that I'm with the right people for that. Now, before we jump in, let's take a moment or two. Feel free to throw in the chat where you're joining us from. Before we jump in, take a moment or two. Let me know in the chat where you're joining us from. Are you in the UK? Are you in the US of A? Are you in Australasia? Are you in Asia? Are you in Mother Africa? Are you in part of the Caribbean? Are you in Southern or Northern Korean? Let me know inside of the chat. Let me know inside of the chat. Let me know who we're rocking with as we jump into the 5 costly mistakes that stop good incomes becoming great wealth, because this one is going to be a game changer. So let me see, as you guys throw in the chat where you're tuning in from across the globe, across the world. And then after that, we're going to jump into sharing some value that will hopefully transform your world. Okay. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. I see it coming in. I see it coming in. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All right. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. I see you guys. All right. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All right. And as you guys jump in, you know what you can do. I usually forget all of this stuff, so I'm going to say it right now so I don't forget. If you hear anything throughout this live that stands out to you, feel free to hit the like. Side by side with that, if there's something that you like, feel free to follow the host, share, to show the people out there that you care, that you hear something in here that you think will be valuable to them out there. Feel free to hit the button that says share. All right. Side by side with that, if you're on the red platform, you know you can hit the button subscribe, which allows you to become a part of the tribe. So there are a few things you can do. You can hit the like if you hear anything you like. You can share to show the people out there you care, or you can hit subscribe to become a part of the tribe. All of those things you can feel free to do. Now, let's jump right in to the value that I have for you. Today, we're talking about the 5 costly mistakes that stop good incomes from becoming great wealth. Specifically, why earning more won't make you wealthy. And more importantly, there's only one way it can make you wealthy, and that's if you do the thing we're going to talk about doing next. Okay? All right. Thank you for those of you who's ring my bell. Thank you, ring my bell, for jumping in and doing that as well. Let's go. All right. We need to make one shift for those joining us on the black platform. There we go. And those who are joining us on the black platform should be fixed now. Okay, if you're joining us on the black platform, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat if you're with us on the black platform and if everything is good at this time, right? Let me know if you're joining us on the black platform, if you guys are all good and ready to go so we can jump into what we have for yo. All right, so on the black platform, let me know. Let's go. Ring my bell. Also, let me know your name so I can formally thank you and formally greet you to the live. Ring my bell. Let me know your name and ring my bell. Thank you for deciding to follow the host. Now, look, I say I usually forget this, so I'm going to make sure that as Ring My Bell has decided to follow the host, I'm going to say it right now so I don't forget. If, guys, you hear anything throughout this live that you like, feel free to hit the button that says like. If you hear something in here that you feel someone out there needs to hear, hit the button that says share. Side by side with that, if you're on the red platform and you want to be a part of our tribe, you know what to do. Just hit the button that says subscribe. And side by side with all of that, you can feel free to follow the host, whichever platform you're on, so you can make sure you get the most out of all of the content that we are sharing. So in this session, we're going to be sharing, let's go, Bridget. Welcome, Bridget, to the live. Welcome to having you in the live, Bridget. Welcome to having you in the live, Bridget. Awesome. All right, so Bridget's rocking with us, and we got the likes going up inside of the black platform. So congratulations. And all the other platforms, you guys know what to do. If you hear something that resonates with you, feel free to hit the like button so we can keep on coming through. Now, in this session, we're going to be talking about the 5 costly mistakes that stop incomes becoming great. Specifically, we're going to be talking about why earning more will not make you wealthy unless you make the change we're going to be speaking about in this specific session. I'm going to uncover why your current income cannot, will not, and does not want to create colossal wealth for you in and of itself alone, okay? Additionally to that, we're going to be sharing in this live the 5 costly mistakes that are quietly dissolving, diluting, and depleting your income. And then we're going to go on to talking about how you can use today's income as tomorrow's wealth building engine. And then we're going to wrap up this live. Well, actually, it won't be the wrap up. It'll be the last thing I share. So the penultimate aspect before we go into the last part of the live, talking about the framework shift from earned income to lasting cash flow. If someone's excited about that, just throw in the chat the words I am. And last but not least, at the end of the live, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be opening it up for you to ask questions about anything we share so you can take even more value out of here. With that being said, let's jump in. I want to start by asking you a question. And that question is, if income created wealth, wouldn't every high earner already be wealthy? I want you to take a moment and genuinely think about that right now. If income alone, if having income created wealth, wouldn't every high earner that you know, every high earner that I know, every high earner that we know, wouldn't they already be wealthy? You know, that's a key, crucial question that we should start to ask ourselves on a day-to-day basis. If income creates wealth, then surely every single person I know, every single person you know, every single person we know should already have wealth. They should already be in a position where they're saying to themselves they've already completed their mission. But that's actually not the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline for you exactly how it works. Let's take person A. Okay, person A. Let's make person A a lady today. Okay, so we take person A, and then let's take person B, right? And person B, for the purpose of this story, is going to be a male today. Okay, now person A starts their journey a particular certain way. Person A earns £180,000 per year. That's what they earn. But let me tell you what they do with what they earn. Over the next 10 years, person A decides to own expensive cars. Person A decides to buy things we call lie abilities, which, as you know, don't help your ability. Person A is stacking up, racking up a whole bunch of things that aren't gonna change anything. Hello, somebody. And as person A is making these decisions with precision, person A is not realizing what's going to ultimately happen at the end of their incision. Now let's look at person B. Let's imagine person B only earns £55,000. £55,000 is slightly less than half of what person A currently generates. But let's say person B decides to invest in assets and not liabilities. Let's say instead of buying cars so they can drive down the street and feel like a star, person B says, no, I'm going to be investing in things that can bring me more income. So I'll replace the car with stocks. I'll replace buying things that make me feel as though I'm the man or woman. Instead, I'm going to be investing in income generating businesses. Okay. Now, some of us might be thinking, income generating businesses, how do I do that? I'm not a shark on Shark Tank. You don't have to be a shark on Shark Tank. You don't have to be a dragon in a dragon's den in order for you to invest, my friend. Now, why is this so important? Let me explain why this is so important. The reason this is so important is because making this simple, single dish difference, making this simple, single decision can ultimately, radically change your life. When you say to yourself, I understand, Samuel, that I generate a good income, but I'm hearing what you're sharing, and for the first time, I'm actually realizing that income alone doesn't create wealth. I've spent all of my life attempting to rack up as much income, but now I'm realizing that income is not the input in and of itself. Income doesn't create the output in and of itself. Income must go through some process to become what I need it to become. If you understand that income does not in and of itself create wealth, you'll start to recognize why all the high earners you know, all the high earners I know, all the high earners we know are not naturally, as a byproduct, just wealthy. Wealth is a byproduct of systems. Wealth is a byproduct of sequences. Wealth is a byproduct of settings that once we put into play, they allow our wealth to come to play. And you can put them into play with your income. But your income has to go to work in order for you to have wealth that will actually work for you. The challenge we have in our current society is most people are trying to have a variety of wealth without doing the prerequisites first, without putting in the first things necessary in order for them to have the things they desire to be necessary. So you might be sitting here saying, Samuel, like, what are the things I need in order to succeed so I can finally have everything I think I need? So glad you asked. One of the things you need is to start to develop and start to create an engine that will propagate wealth for you. When we look at this example of person A and person B, even though person A is making close to 3 times more than person B, the decisions, the choices, the day-to-day activity is what is lacking creativity with person A versus person B. A question you should ask yourself is, who do I desire to be? Am I going to be person A, or am I deciding to be person B? Because it doesn't matter how much income you generate if all the income you generate decides to start to hesitate. If you're on 180,000 a year and your 180 is drank like beer, then what's the point of you attempting to accumulate wealth here? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because all of your wealth is being slowly depleted. All of your wealth is being slowly wasted. All of your energy is being procrastinated and hesitated. But there's another way. And this is the reason why I'm here to speak to you today, because there's another way. What's the other way, Samuel? Follow the path of person B. Follow the path of someone who can see. Follow the path of someone who decides to get into investments rather than spend their investments on liabilities. The biggest challenge most people have is they haven't come to grips with a key core concept, which I want to share with you right now, and that is income is simply raw material. You see, most people have never had that enlightenment in their life to recognize why things aren't working in their life. Most people haven't realized that their income is just raw material. It's like when someone goes into a mine searching for gold. Even when they find gold, it doesn't at first look like gold. It looks like a rock. It might even look like mud. And it takes some time. It takes some time to uncover the precious metal, to uncover the precious jewel, to uncover the thing that's inside. And in order to do that, you might need to use some fuel. You might need to go through some processes, so go through some sequences, go through some systems and apply some settings in order to turn what looks like a rock into some pure gold. And this is the challenge we have in our current climate. In our current climate, most people haven't realized that income is simply raw material. And because they've failed to realize that income is simply raw material, let me tell you what they do. They believe that income creates wealth. And because they believe that income creates wealth, they haven't realized that every high earner isn't already wealthy, because income does not automatically create wealth. There's something that you and I still have to do. There's a process we have to put our income through. And the moment we place our income through the one or two things we have to do, everything will begin to work for me and you. That's how wealth is created. It's created by subjecting your income to a process. It's created by recognizing that income alone isn't the key to wealth. Income alone is simply the raw material. And the moment it starts to click, the moment you start to realize that your income is only, surely, your raw material, guess what? Everything starts to change for you. Let me give you a quick example. One of the things I discovered, a principle that I uncovered, is the principle, and I found it in a book. The principle states that rather than using your money to buy anything you desire to buy, you should instead wait for your money to have babies. And the moment your money has babies, you should then wait for your money to have grandbabies. And the moment your money has some grandbabies, hello, somebody, that's when you should get to spend some of your money. Let's take a moment and think about this. What would happen if the only time you desired and decided to spend money was by the time your money made grandbabies? Let's look at what this looks like. If this initial money is your income, alternatively, if you work a job, your salary, and you have the wherewithal, you have the wisdom, you have the insight, the hindsight, the foresight to take your income, take your salary, and invest it into some form of an asset, some form of a vehicle. And there are many vehicles out there. But by virtue and as a byproduct of you investing that income into a vehicle or into an asset, that money now creates some new money. So your money has produced children for you. And the moment your money has produced children for your original income money, You then take that secondary money, the children of your money's children, and you get your money's children to go have some grandchildren. Now, the moment your money's children have some grandchildren, you then say to yourself, oh, now I can spend some money. That would be one of the fastest paths for you to develop and create an amount of money you will never hate. Because what we're doing through this process is we are creating wealth. But the key to creating wealth is not to spend the income on yourself, because income is truly and simply raw material. If you resonate with what I've shared in this, what I'd like you to do is write the comment raw material down below so I know that this is getting through to you. Let's go. Because raw material is what your income is. It's nothing other than that. It's simply raw material. And the moment we get more comfortable understanding that our income is raw material is the moment we're in the best place to do what we need to do in order to allow true wealth to start to come through. So let's switch gears right now. I would like to share with you what I call the biblical blueprint, because this biblical blueprint is what I found to be the fastest path to generating wealth. It's not a blueprint that I discovered in a business meeting. It's not a blueprint that I discovered in some mastermind, even though I've paid handsomely to be in a whole bunch of different masterminds over the years. This is a blueprint that I literally found in the Bible. And I would love to share this blueprint with you in order for you to also allow your true, divine, God-given wealth to start to come through. The biblical blueprint that I discovered revealed to me what I call the dividing line of wealth. And in order to understand the dividing line of wealth, it's not complicated at all. It's actually something fairly simple once you get the hang of it. Now, you've probably heard, like I've often heard, that the rich get richer. I'm here to tell you something. That's the truth. The rich tend to get richer. And you've probably heard, if you're someone who's heard the rich get richer, that the poor get poorer. And I've heard that too. Now, the thing that's super interesting is most people have heard that from multiple different places, but very few people understand where that principle actually comes from. The principle that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer is a principle that is first found in the Bible. The Bible clearly articulates this principle in a parable that was told by Jesus, found in Matthew chapter 25. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus tells the parable of the master who goes away on a journey and leaves his 3 servants with talents. He leaves one servant with 5 talents. He leaves another servant with 2 talents, and he leaves the 3rd servant with 1 talent. Now, what's interesting is the servant who has 5 talents goes and creates a new 5 talents. He doubled up. And the servant who had 2 talents goes and produces another 2 talents. He doubled up. But the servant who has 1 talent hides the singular, sole, individual talent, and when the master comes back to do his reckoning or accounting to say, hey, where's the talents today? The first servant says, you gave me 5, here's 10 I produced in my life. The second servant says, you gave me 2, here's another 2 that I was able to make come through. But the third servant says, because I knew you, because I knew something, because of how knowledgeable I am, I hid the one you gave me and I didn't create any more. Maybe I'm crazy. And what's interesting is this. What the master says, the words, the wordplay utilized, the language shared with these servants. The first thing that's beautiful and powerful and pertinent in the predicament is that the master says to the first two servants, he says, you've been faithful with a little, I'll make you ruler over much. He says, you had that as a servant, but now you can go and become a ruler. So if you're ever asking yourself, how do I go from being a servant of some money to being a ruler of some true wealth? The answer is discover how to multiply what you have. It's very simple. Discover how to multiply what you have. Samuel, what do you mean? Well, let me explain what I mean. I shared with you the rich get richer. Let me tell you why. The reason why is because they're implementing the law of simply multiplication. Okay? It's very simple. Okay? We can complicate it, we can overcomplicate it, we can spiritualize it, we can analyze it, or you can just take it as it is. Well, Samuel, how is it? So glad you asked. Let me explain. The rich get richer because they employ the law of multiplication. But then the question is, well, Samuel, if the rich get richer because they employ the law of multiplication, how comes the poor get poorer? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. The poor get poorer because they implement the law of division. Whilst rich people are multiplying, poor people are busy dividing. You see, the Bible actually tells us this. There's a powerful verse, I believe it's in Proverbs chapter 19. It says, there is much food in the tillage of the poor. What does that mean? That means poor people have great opportunity right in front of them. But let me share with you the end of that verse, because if I miss out the end of the verse, it won't seem for you to see how it actually gets worse. It says, there is much food in the tillage of the poor, but they are destroyed for a lack or a want of judgment. You see, the reason the poor get poorer is because they're implementing the law of division. They're not applying judgment to the food in the tillage so that they can turn that food in the tillage from food just for them to food for the whole village. The reason why it works like this is because money loses momentum through consumption and through liabilities. The energy found within money literally depletes, literally dilutes, and literally divides through consumption and liability. But here's what's powerful on the other side of this, because the rich get richer, right? Money literally builds momentum through compounding assets. And the thing for most people is they never ever think about how they can start the journey of compounding assets. So as a result, they very rarely get to experience the feeling of money catching momentum. The rich get richer through multiplying, and the poor get poorer through dividing. Because money loses momentum through consumption and liability. Now, the reason this is so profound and so powerful is because in this parable in Matthew 25, when Jesus comes back, the master comes back to engage the proverbial master. I've already called him Jesus. When the proverbial master comes back to see those who had the talents, he says something powerful. He says, to he who has, much more shall be given. What does that mean? The rich get richer. And then he says something equally powerful. He says, but to he who does not have, even the little that he has will be taken away from him. The poor get poorer. So if you've heard this concept, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, I'm here to tell you it's found in the Bible. But here's the funniest thing. If that's found in the Bible and it's true, a great question for me and you is, what else is found in the Bible that's equally true that can help me and you to circumvent or quickly elevate through this whole situation we've just described? And I'm here to show it to you. We've said the rich get richer because they employ the law of multiplication. We said the poor get poorer because they employ the law of division. But there's another one that most people have never heard of. And I'm so glad you're ready to receive it. Let's go. The one that most people have never heard of is right here. It's the fact that the wise, according to the Bible, get wiser. Now, The rich get richer because they apply the law of multiplication. The poor get poorer because they apply the law of division. But how comes the wise get wiser? I'll tell you why. Because they employ the law of instruction. Samuel, what's the law of instruction? The law of instruction is the principle that I was taught at the age of 20 years old, 21 years ago, by one of my first coaches, which changed my life. Let me tell you what the law of instruction is. The law of instruction was first taught to me by one of my first coaches when I was 20 years old. And he said to me, Samuel, why take 70 years to learn what you can learn in 7 hours by reading the book of someone who had to take 70 years to write the book? When I first learned the law of instruction, my life started to change. You see, when I was young, I wasn't a ferocious reader. You see, when I was young, I wasn't even interested in reading until I learned the law of instruction. It was the law of instruction that allowed me to change my life. Now, you might be someone who's saying, hold on, Samuel, law of instruction. I've never heard this before. Where'd you get that from? Let's go find it. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 9. Let's go. In Proverbs chapter 9, verse 9, listen to what it says. It says, give instruction to a wise man. Give instruction to a wise man. And what happens? Watch this. And he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. So it's incomplete. It's not just that the rich get richer, and it's not just that the poor get poorer, but the one that most people don't discover is that the wise get wiser. The rich get richer because they employ the law of multiplication. The poor get poorer because they employ the law of division. But the wise get wiser because they employ the law of instruction. You see, if you're the kind of person who's interested in finding out what to do, then you're the kind of person who's interested in having way more leverage working for you. This is how the wise get wiser. So you can be someone who financially right now may be classified as poor, but you can shift and start to open up the wealth door the moment you start to get on the track of the wise getting wiser. The moment you start to be someone who says, I'm going to embrace instruction and change my life from a path of destruction. Give instruction to a wise man and he'll be yet wiser. The leverage to go from being wise to getting wiser is knowing what to do with your raw material. And the problem for most people is they have no idea on earth what to do with their raw material. They have no idea what to do with their income. They have no idea what to do to change their outcome. Well, what would happen if you became like the verse in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 9 has proclaimed? What would happen if you get on the path to be someone who's not just trying to be rich, getting richer, using the law of multiplication, who's not just someone who's trying to run away from being poor and ending up poorer because you've been using the law of division, but you're someone who realizes I can be wise and get yet wiser because I'm going to use the law of instruction. I'm going to use instruction to shift my life out of destruction. This is what's available to you. This is what could change everything for you. But in order for this to work for you, you have to be someone who decides to let instructions come through. If you are getting value from what I'm sharing with you right now, I want you to write the word WISE in the chat. WISE. Because as you write the word WISE in the chat, in the comments, you are going to be making your declaration and your proclamation for you to start taking steps of transformation. The wise get wiser. The very same way that the rich get richer, and the very same way that the poor end up getting poorer. It's because of the implementation of very simple factual laws. So the question is, are you going to use those laws to start to open doors? Or are you going to allow those laws to keep closed the formidable doors? Now, with that being shared, we're going to jump into the 5 costly mistakes that stop your income from creating great wealth. And as we unpack these 5, if you're ready, I would encourage you to have your notepad, iPad, tablet, stylus, pen, paper, everything you need in order to succeed, so you can take away all of this value and allow it to become a seed. So you can move further faster in your future rather than staying in the same place and asking yourself, Father God, where's the grace? Let's jump in to mistake number 1. The first mistake that most people make that is stopping their wealth from being created from their current income, even if their income is currently strong, is that they're confusing income with wealth in the first place. You see, your payslip is not proof of wealth. It's actually proof that someone paid you. And until we get to a place where we realize and recognize that our payslips are not our wealth, we will be stuck and trapped in a place where we're fixed on our wealth, and that's the only thing coming to ourselves. We have to get an understanding. Our payslip is not a proof of our wealth. Even if you have a very good income, even if you're on 55,000, 60,000, 80,000, 180,000 pounds per year, your payslip is not proof of wealth. Your payslip is a record of one thing and one thing alone. What is that, Samuel? Your payslip is a record that somebody decided to pay you, and that's all. Let me give you a few characteristics of each of these. Income. Let's start with this one. The first characteristic of income that we need to be mindful of is it is earned. Income is earned. By virtue of the fact it's earned, 9 times out of 10, that means you are using your muscle, your members, in order to make that money. Income is earned. Here's a second characteristic that most people feel, but don't cognitively allow their mind to reveal. Income is temporary. Ask yourself for a moment, if I were to leave my job, would my job still send that income through? The answer for me, I know the answer for you, is that income will stop coming through. So why is that? Well, I can tell you why that is. It's because income is earned and income is temporary. And the moment you start to realize that your income, no matter how much it is earned, and the moment you start to realize that your income, no matter how much it is temporary, you will start to apply and employ things that are more beneficial for you. Now, I'm going to tell you a result of the fact that income is earned and another result of the fact that income is temporary. By virtue of the fact that income is earned, by virtue of the fact that income is temporary, that means something very enlightening. That means that income only offers a little bit. It can only afford you a little bit of freedom. Yeah, you might go on holiday once a year. Yeah, you might have the luxury ability to purchase maybe a vehicle like a car or a motorbike or both. But it only affords you a little itty bitty bit of freedom. Why? Because it's income. It's earned. It's temporary. And thus it only affords you and offers you a little bit of freedom. So a good question is, Samuel, if income is temporary and income is earned and income only offers me a little bit of freedom, what can I do? I'm going to tell you what you can do. You can start to focus on wealth. Because the big mistake I see people make is assume that income is wealth. You cannot, should not, and would not do well to confuse income with wealth. So let's share some characteristics about wealth. First one, wealth, unlike income, which is earned, is not earned, it's generally accumulated. When people are researching somebody's net worth, They're looking at the wealth that has been accumulated, not the income that has been generated. When people are looking at a person's net worth, they're looking at the wealth that's been accumulated and not the income that's currently being generated. So by virtue of wealth being accumulated, another characteristic emerges. That is the characteristic that wealth is not temporary. As a result, wealth is more enduring than income. And this is a characteristic that most people forget. This is a characteristic that most people can't grasp and as a result can't take advantage of. But it's right there beneath our noses for us to discover and take advantage of. So if income is earned, if income is thus temporary, and if income only offers little freedom, but wealth on the other hand is accumulated and wealth is enduring, what does wealth give us? Well, wealth has the power to offer sustained freedom, which is much greater than little freedom. Wealth gives you that power. Income cannot give you that power, but wealth can give you that power to start to build sustained freedom. There's a particular process that I like to walk my friends through that I'm going to show you so you can see how wealth can start to come through. And this process is a process that once you start to get it working, you're going to feel like everything in your financial house is finally working. Let's break this down. It starts with income. But as you generate income, you work towards developing and producing what we call some form of a surplus. Now, typically, we've all heard sayings like, make sure you live within your means. Well, it's living within your means that allows a surplus to be. And you don't have the surplus just to say, I have surplus. You have the surplus according to the Bible, because the Bible talks about this. The Bible says, my cup runneth over, which means I have more than my cup can hold. That is called surplus. And the benefit of having surplus is you can now invest the surplus into investments. There's going to be certain investments that are more akin to who you are. There's going to be certain investments that you don't want to go close to. So as a result, you'll run far. But it's up to you to get to that place where you can start saying, okay, now I'm going to jump into investments with my surplus. And as you start to accumulate investments with your surplus, you start to get, my good friend, cash flow. Now, the beautiful thing here is this cash flow can be used in multiple ways. One of the ways could be for you to develop your lifestyle. One of the ways could be as an engine to snowball back into your investments. But ultimately, whether you use that cash flow for lifestyle purposes or whether you use that cash flow to snowball back into investments, that cash flow produces for you the word we call freedom. As you go on your journey of life and you see people struggling, you will find again and again that the reason they're struggling is because they have not used a framework such as the one I've just shared with you. This very simple framework of taking your income, allowing there to be surplus, placing your surplus into investments, allowing those investments to produce cash flow, and allowing that cash flow to produce freedom is the simple, single secret that is fueling most people's astronomical wealth creation. And if you decide to take this same framework and apply it to your life, you'll be able to break out of this big, catastrophic, costly mistake of confusing income with wealth, and you will start to embrace freedom for yourself. I want you to do a very simple task. And if you do this task now, it's going to radically bless your life. I want you to take a journal and a pen and just write down the question, where does your income currently finish? Most people ask themselves the opposite of that question. Where does their income come from? But the moment you start to ask yourself this particular question, where does your income currently finish? Everything will start to change for you. Does your income finish currently with your salary? Or does your income go a step further into your lifestyle? Or does your income go even more further into investments? Or is your income currently finishing in the form of a secondary or tertiary form of cash flow? Let me know in the comments below where your income currently finishes when you apply it or employ it to where it currently goes. And if you resonate with what I've shared with you in this major mistake, I want you to write the word freedom in the comments. So I know that you're someone who's saying to yourself, I need to make the change. Because if you don't recognize you need to make the change, no one's going to be able to make the change for you. And you will continue to stay stuck in this mistake and this cycle where your income doesn't produce surplus. And because there is no surplus, you can't get into any investments. And because you don't get into any investments, there isn't ever any cash flow. And as a byproduct of not having that cash flow, you continually lack, or more importantly, lose your opportunity for freedom. I don't want that to be your story. And this is the reason why we're breaking this down the way we're breaking this down today. So let me know in the comments, throw in the chat the word freedom, so I know that this is something you want to apply going forward so you can move further faster. Now, with that being said, we're going to shift into the second costly mistake. This costly mistake I constantly see people make is spending like today's income is guaranteed forever. Have you made that mistake of spending as if today's income that you're receiving is going to be guaranteed forever? Because if you have, you're making one of the biggest mistakes of your wealth creating lifetime. You see, most people budget around today's income, whereas someone who's a wealth builder, they're actually consistently planning around tomorrow's uncertainty. You see, when we face a catastrophic experience like we faced in 2019 with a CV19, or like we faced back in 2008 when in the real estate landscape things weren't great, most people, because up until that point had only budgeted around their 2 days income, they find themselves in those experiences unprepared for what's about to happen. Whereas the wealth builders who have been thinking ahead of time, who have been planning around the events of tomorrow, the uncertainty of tomorrow, who have done what it says in the Bible, which is in the book of Ecclesiastes, cast your bread upon the waters 7, maybe even 8 times, because you do not know which one of those will come back to you. Those wealth builders who are preparing for what's ahead have put themselves in a position where they can stay ahead. And I want you to think about this in your own life and ask yourself, have you been preparing like a wealth builder, or have you been operating like most people? You see, on the journey of creating wealth, a lot of the time for most people, it looks quite like this, where the amount of income is shown on this side and the time of life is shown on this adjacent side. Now, what happens for most people is they have employment income. And their employment income might have some form of linear growth, but nonetheless, it's going steady along the way. Whereas someone who says, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so let me not just rely on my employment income. Let me start to build some asset income, or what I like to call cash flow. And because they develop some cash flow, even if their cash flow never grows, even if the cash flow is on the line below, what typically often happens is some kind of major life event. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. When these life events occur, someone's earned income, someone's employment income can literally plummet. It can crash in some cases and go straight to zero. It's possible. In many cases, it might just deplete. But here's the funniest thing. Asset generated income, cash flow that you've put in the right things in order for it to grow doesn't do the same thing. Now, why does this happen? Let's start to break this down. There's a few reasons why. One of the main reasons why this happens is because earned income from employment is temporary. By virtue of the fact that earned income is temporary, that's the very reason why when a cataclysmic life event occurs, the income can simply eradicate. Here's the thing that's even interesting. There are people who the catastrophic thing that's occurred to their income is not something that hit everyone. There are people who had a child, and by virtue of having a child, the industry that they prepared for, the industry that they studied their degrees for, the industry that they are in didn't allow them to continue to win. That life event that wipes out someone's earned employed income can literally be having a child. Now, does that mean that every single person who has a child is going to have their income going down? No, it doesn't mean that. But it means it could be the case. So what do you do instead? I'll tell you what you do. You start to generate cash flow. You start to build assets with your current income so that you're never in a situation where you're saying to yourself, wow, I don't even know what I'm going to do anymore. Your employed income can disappear, but because you've generated cash flow, you're still not going to be thrown out of here. Income is temporary. But here's another thing that most people don't realize. Not only is income temporary, most people don't realize that assets are way more durable than employed income. Assets are more durable. What does that mean, Samuel? What that basically means is that assets can weather the storm that your income is not prepared to weather. Whilst your income is figuring out whether it can get a raincoat so it can still come out, your assets will be churning cash flow for you without a doubt. You see, as most people's lifestyle expands, they take on new commitments. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's children, maybe it's a desire to have a bigger home. As lifestyle begins to expand, what happens for most people is their strength shrinks. And most people don't understand how this works, but here's the reality. The man who starts his wealth journey at 25, 35, his knees do not work the same way when he gets to 60 or 65. The man and woman who start their wealth journey at 25, his knees are not in the same predicament, are not having the same prowess or power when they hit 75. So the question we have to ask ourselves before we hit 75 and our knees are telling us a story about our life is, what assets have I accumulated? What cash flow have I created? What have I done so that my life is not going to become one that's hated? Imagine if you took a step back now and realized that if you're still going to be here in the next 10 years, those 10 years are going to pass by anyway. So it would be healthy for you and I to encumber upon ourselves to do something now to prepare for that day. To do something now so when that day comes, we can be appreciative instead of resentful for the fact that we have cash flow and accumulated assets generating income to allow us to live the way we desire to live. Because if you're like most people, it's only a matter of time before you experience exactly what we've broken down here right now. That your earned employed income may even have a linear growth trajectory, but it's only a matter of time potentially until some life event occurs which puts your wealth on a different trajectory. But if you take a step back and say, well, hold on a minute, Samuel, I'm hearing what you're talking about. I'm going to start working on developing some form of cash flow. And even if my cash flow grows slow, at least my cash flow will be there regardless of what happens to me. If you're someone who what I'm sharing is resonating with, and you're saying to yourself, Samuel, you know what? I need to do something about that. I want you to write in the comments, the word multiply. And I'm going to share with you exactly how to make this work, even if you haven't yet figured out how this can work. This is how you make this work. If you're someone who's ready to multiply, you start by taking what you currently earn. And don't just squander it. Don't just spend it. Don't just see it walk out the door and say, bye-bye, honey, I'm not coming back anymore. Instead, take what you earn and find a way to protect it. One of the best ways you can protect your income is by investing it in something that's going to bring you back more income. Once you decide to protect it, there's more. The moment you've protected your income, you are now in the best position to be able to position your income. Because now you can place your income in a place where it can be positioned to generate more income for you. And this is how you start to tap into the ability to multiply what you have. Take what you've got and turn it into what it's currently not. This is how you take £1 and turn your £1 into something profound. Imagine if your £1 could become £1.50 on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, on a second-to-second basis. How's that going to happen? The only way it's going to happen is if you take what you earn, you find a way to protect it so that you can adequately position it for it to be able to be a seed that can multiply for you. I'm going to give you a journal task right now. I want you to write down the question, if your employment literally stopped tomorrow, if your current income stopped tomorrow, how many months would your income be able to continue for? How many months would you be able to go if you no longer had any income coming in? If your employment stopped tomorrow, how many months would your income continue? And the moment you write that in your journal, I want you to take a moment or two and just think through, like genuinely answer that question for yourself so you can start to get to a place in your life where you can have a deeper understanding of what would happen if your current employment income stopped coming through. And that's the fastest way for you to do something about this tragic mistake which desires to take away all of your desires, because most people don't do what it requires. Don't be someone spending like today's income is guaranteed forever. Because if you're one of the people doing that, you're not prepared for when things go splat. If you are getting value from what I'm sharing, I want you to write the word multiply in the comments so I know that this resonates with you. And for those of you who are rocking with us, we're going to jump into mistake number 3 that I see many people make. We're going to jump into mistake number 3. If you're ready, throw in the chat the number 333. So I know that you're rocking with me as we jump into mistake number 3. Let's go. All right, let's go deeper. If you guys are ready, throw the word deeper in the chat. If you guys are ready, throw the word deeper in the chat. We're going to go into mistake number 3. The third mistake, the third costly mistake that stops good incomes becoming great wealth. And again, guys, before I forget, I'll say it again. If you hear something that resonates with you throughout this live, feel free to hit the like button. Side by side with that, if you hear something that's super valuable to you, you know what to do. Hit that follow button. If you're on the red platform, hit subscribe so you can become a part of the tribe. And if you hear something in here that you know is so much valuable that needs to be shared with someone out there, then don't be shy. Hit the button that says share to show the people out there that you truly care, right? Now's your time, right? So hit the like, hit subscribe, become a part of the tribe, hit the share for the people out there to know you care. Let's go, and feel free to follow, right? So hopefully that's all helpful. Before I forget, I typically forget to say all that stuff until someone does one of those things. So guys, there, I've remembered. All right, cool. Let's go deeper. The third mistake that allows people's good incomes to not become great wealth. We're going to jump into the third mistake. If you guys are ready for the third mistake, throw the number 3 in the chat. If you're ready for the third mistake, throw the number 3 in the chat. Another mistake is chasing bigger income instead of bigger multiplication. If you're someone who's chasing bigger income all of the time, I want bigger income, I want bigger income, I want bigger income, but you're never thinking about literally having bigger multiplication, you are missing the trick of the century. You see, most people are trying to earn another £10,000 instead of making their first £10,000 work harder for them. Take a second right now and just think to yourself, what would happen if you actually got your current £10,000 to work harder for you than kept going out there trying to get another £10,000 to come through? I can tell you what would happen, because the same thing happened to me. Your life would change. The moment we realize how to prioritize and organize is the same moment that we get our wealth to start to optimize. Instead of saying to yourself all of the time, how can I get that next pay rise? I was that person. I'll put my hands up. I remember a number of years ago, I was working in a school. The school I was working in was actually paying me quite well. But I got an opportunity to go and work in another school in the same location, same area roughly. And I decided to take that new job because it came with a £6,000 annual salary income increase. And I was like, yo, £6,000 extra, I'm in. Let me tell you what I should have done instead. I should have thought about the tax ramifications. I should have thought about the additional cost it was going to cost me, because it did cost me slightly more, to travel to that new workplace. Because let me tell you something super transparently. I took that income increase and in less than 12 months, I resigned from the new job. Samuel, why did you resign from the new job? The reason I resigned from the new job is because the new job cost me more to get there. The new job resulted in me paying more taxes. The new job was such a barrier to my wealth, it felt like I was still getting paid the same as when I was at the old job. Now, why does that happen? Why did that happen to me? It happened to me the same way it can happen to you, because I was more focused on a new £6,000 coming through than what my current £6,000 was able to do. Most people are trying to earn another £10,000 instead of making their current £10,000 just work harder. What would happen if you thought differently about it? You see, there's people who take their current £10,000 and spend it. And that's okay. That's okay if you want to do it that way. That's okay. There's people who take their current £10,000 and save it. And that's okay. That's okay if you want to do it that way. Now, I actually don't want to do it either of those ways. And I can break down exactly why I don't want to do it either of those ways. That's because I believe there's only 3 things you can do with money. Now, most people have never heard of these 3 things because they think there's 4 things or 5 things or 10 things or a million things you can do with money. Well, I'm not trying to be funny, but the truth is there's only 3 things you can do with money. So what most people typically ask me at this point is, Samuel, what are the 3 things, the only 3 things you can do with money? I'll tell you what they are. The first thing you can do with money is waste it. We've all got that friend, don't look to the left or the right, who literally wastes every pound, every dollar, every euro, every cent. We've all got that friend. Because that's one of the 3 things you can do with money. You can waste money. And most people don't realize that there's only 3 things they can do with money, and they're typically the people who end up wasting most of their money. Here's the second thing you can do with money. Besides waste it, money gives you the opportunity to spend it. What is spending money, Samuel? Spending money is taking the money you do have and exchanging it for something else that you desire. Now, if that thing is not a waste, then you haven't spent the money, you've wasted the money. Now, the third thing you can do with money, and if I ask you to let me know in the comments, what's the third thing you can do with money? You're probably going to say, oh, Samuel, I know the third thing. I know the third thing. You can save money, can't you, Samuel? No, you can't. Okay? Now, this is usually a big conundrum for people when I share this with my friends, because when I share this with my friends, a lot of my friends say, but Samuel, I'm sure you can save money. I was taught that in school. And in response to that, I typically say, you can't use school tactics in order to create non-school outcomes. Financial freedom is a non-school outcome, and they don't talk about financial freedom in school. So tactics that are used in school, like savings, are not the tactics that work for you to rule. So Samuel, how can you tell me you can't save money? I just put my money in the bank. Well, if you could really save money, and if saving money was such a great idea, then my question to you would be, what does the bank do when you put your £10,000 through? Because if saving money was such a great idea, I'll tell you what the bank would do. The moment you put your money into the bank with the great idea of saving your money, the bank would take that money and put it in another bank and save the money. But the bank doesn't do that. The bank never does that. The bank never will do that, because the bank has realized that saving is a scam. And the only people that fall for it are the people that are thinking they're saving. If saving was such a great idea, the bank you saving would be saving. But instead, the bank you saving is not saving. The bank you saving is doing the third thing you can do with money, which is invest it. Whilst you attempt to use the school tactic to achieve a non-school outcome by taking your hard-earned income and attempting to save it in a bank, the bank is not saving any of it. The bank realize that the scam, and for those of you who don't know what scam stands for, let me tell you, scam stands for still confused about, you guessed it, money. And I can share with you that an obvious reveal that someone is still confused about money is the fact that they do things that the people they're doing the things with are not even doing the same thing. If you're going to take money that you've earned and place it in a bank because you think that's something you can do with money, You're going to be very quickly rude awakened when you realize from taking a sit down and a moment to think that the bank you save your money in doesn't save your money. So what does that mean? That means that the bank is telling you that saving money is not something you can actually do. So for most people who put money in a bank and wait for the end of the year for their 0.0101p to be paid to them, they don't realize that the bank is not going to save that money somewhere else. The bank is going to invest that money because there's only three things you can do with money. You can waste it, you can spend it, or you can invest it. And if you think you're saving, what are you really doing? You're probably really wasting or spending, thinking you're saving, which doesn't exist because the bank is investing. So the bank gets to take that money, invest that money, generate a 9%, 10%, 12%, 200%, 28% return on their investment, which is really your investment, and pay you a 0.001 pence shoddy crumb whilst you look around and ask what needs to be done. Whilst most people are trying to earn another £10,000, you should instead be someone who's recognizing how to make your first £10,000 work harder for you. Don't be the person who just spends it. Don't be the person who thinks they can save it and inadvertently, as a result, is wasting it. But be the person instead who can multiply it. If you start to be someone who can study inflation and understand what inflation is, you'll quickly understand that placing your money in the bank is more wasting it than it is spending it. Because incremental partnerships, as I often say when I speak to my close friends, creates exponential results. Don't be the person who's dwindling away the income that you worked so hard to get paid. Instead, be someone who understands the characteristics and the constructs of an investment so that those investments can become investments for you and hopefully an inheritance for your children and your children's children that you also bring through. Gone are the days of not being aware of what's taking place in the landscape. Be the person who starts to understand, oh, I get what's happening. We were all hoodwinked into thinking we should put our money in the bank. But the reality is our money shouldn't go to the bank because the bank is going to do what I can do to make my own wealth come through. I can invest my money. And investing is going to give me a return on my investment. But spending money is not going to give me a return on my investment. And wasting money is not going to give me a return on my investment. So what do I need to do? I need to start a process of investment. Because incremental partnerships create exponential results. Let me give you a framework that's going to help you with this whole process. This framework is super simple, okay? The first thing you want to do is take your income, and when you take your income, employ it into a process of allocation, okay? Allocate what's coming in. Don't be someone who just lets what comes in come in. When it comes in, allocate it. Already know where it's going. Already know its direction, so over time it can create a form of financial protection. Through the allocation, ensure that at least one of your buckets is assets, okay? Have assets as one of the buckets in which you're sending or directing your money. Now, what happens if you have assets in your list of direction in which you're sending your money? Oh my gosh, some great news for you. Your assets produce cash flow. And the joy of your assets producing cash flow, it gives you the opportunity to reinvest. This is possible for you. This is possible for me. This is possible for anybody. You don't have to have a £5,000 per month salary in order to follow this process. You don't have to be someone who is, as they say in the UK, minted to follow this process. This process is so simple. If you employ it, it will literally, over time, employ you. It will be able to literally replace your income and allow you to make more money and some. But you have to be committed to it. You have to make that decision, and you have to be the one who takes the steps. So if this resonates with you, I want you to write in the comments the word reinvestment so that I know that this is a path that you're willing to go. As I usually say, small keys open up big doors. This is the key to this. The key is understanding your income is the small key. And the big door is the cash flow that's going to come back once you invest in the assets. But if you're not mindful of this, if you're not investing in the assets, nothing's going to work. I want you to think about that. If you're not mindful of this, if you're not investing in the assets, nothing is going to work. So the key is to find a way to build up your repertoire of investment. Find a way to build up your war chest so you can start to invest. And don't worry about the income when you spend it. Don't focus on income just for you to save it. Instead, be the person who knows how to multiply it. And that's how things will change for you. We're going to jump into mistake number 4. If you're ready for mistake number 4, throw the number 4 in the chat. If you're ready for number 4, throw the number 4 in the chat. Zishan in the house. He says, Uncle, what? Let's go. I love that. We're going to take the questions at the end as well. So guys, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat throughout the session, and we'll take all the questions at the end. Without a doubt, we'll be taking the questions at the end. All right, let's jump into mistake number 4. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people make when they have an income, which is great, but they're not allowing that great income to become colossal wealth, is working harder instead of building systems. And I want you to think about that for yourself for a moment. Imagine if you're always in the gym trying to lift more weight, lift more weight, lift more weight, lift more weight, instead of perfecting your system of lifting the weight. You see, those of us who have been in the gym, we know what happens. What happens is you're going to develop an injury very quickly because you're increasing your load, but you're not improving the way you manage the load. You see, when your income rises, most people start to work harder. But when wealth rises, only when your systems work harder. So if you are someone who wants to position yourself for true wealth creation, the focus should not be on increasing your income, increasing your income, increasing your income, as much as it should be on developing systems, developing systems, developing systems. Wealth rises when your systems work harder, but income rises when you work harder. So you got to decide your hard. This is where people often say, choose your hard. What hard do you desire? Do you desire the hardness of, oh, my income's gone up by another £5,000, by another £10,000, by another £15,000? Or do you desire the hard of, oh, I've just generated my first £1,000 from one of my systems. I've just generated my first £2,000 from one of my systems. Imagine when you've got a system of recurring income, for example, generating for you 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 12,000, 122,000 every single God blessed month. That's when things change. They change not because you've radically changed, but because your systems have changed. And instead of you thinking about how hard you can work, you've realized you've got a system that can work. Now, the reason why this is so powerful is because when you focus on you working harder for your income to increase, your fully fledged investment is in effort. So everything's about effort. How much effort can I put in? How much effort do I need to win? Your whole mindset ends up being effort oriented when your full focus is on the hard work you do. But if you're someone who shifts your mindset for a moment and says, hold on a minute, instead of me focusing on the hard work I have to do, why don't I focus on a system I can use to bring wealth through? Because systems shift everything. If you start to deploy your hard-working energy into systems instead of into your effort, guess what's going to happen? That system will replace even your income. And this is the key to change everything for you and for me. It's recognizing that I need to develop a system. I need to work on my system. I need to produce a system rather than increase my effort, rather than turn up my energy. rather than improve my employability. Because no matter how employable you are, you're only ever going to generate earned income from an income generating earning machine. But if you could have an asset that generates residual income for you, then everything changes for you. Now, some people often ask me, Samuel, how comes you don't say passive income? Well, the reason I don't say passive income is because I'm really interested in psychology, specifically human psychology. And one of the things I find the more and more I read on psychology is that words have deep power. And what happens for most people is they tell themselves, I want to make passive income. And their subconscious mind understands what the word passive really means. The word passive means it comes without me doing anything. Now, here's the thing that's real. Nothing comes without you doing anything. Okay, I'm going to say it again in case you need to pick up your pen. Nothing comes without you doing anything. And this is the simple, single, biggest reason why most people who tell themselves they want to create passive income spend decades without ever getting to touch any of the passive income. Because you've pre-programmed your mind to believe that you want passive income, which means I do nothing and get something. But there is nothing in the world which is do nothing and get something. You have to do something, even if it's the initial investment of putting something in. Whether it's going to learn about that thing, something has to happen before the cash flow can cash in. And what most people do is they unashamedly convince their subconscious mind that they're going to generate a kind of income that's impossible to generate, passive income. And as a result, they go after this passive income and are complaining when it doesn't come. The quick, simple fix is just to change your language. Stop calling it passive income and start calling it what it is. It's residual income. It's income that comes in on a repeated basis, even if you don't work harder at making it come in. That's residual. That's not passive. Don't let your subconscious mind create self-sabotaging experiences because you used the wrong word. Instead, shift the word and watch the finance come in just like a herd. So my encouragement to you is to stop focusing on the tons and tons of effort and effort and effort to attempt to shift your situation. If you're someone who's working harder instead of building systems, then you're already making a mistake. And the key is just to shift that around. Don't be someone who hasn't realized that your income rises from you working harder, but be someone who recognizes that your wealth rises when your systems are working harder. So now let's start going to town on getting the systems to work rather than getting your muscles to work. You see, the transition from what we call an employee mindset or employee thinking to the process of being an investor with investor thinking requires shifting from your active labor to a more residual architecture. And what that basically means is you have to be someone who says to yourself, you know what, I'm not going to be lifting this heavy load to generate this income again and again, my friend. Instead, I'm going to find a way to prepare a way. A way for what? A way for the systems to bring the cash flow in each day. Systems can be investments. Systems can be a business. Systems can even be a simple process. Each of these things can start to produce income for you and from you on a regular basis. And this will result in long-term cash flow for you and your family if you decide to focus on systems instead of focusing on your hard-earned income. Imagine if you could start to develop and build some systems right now which will pay you long after you've stepped away from them. You've gone away from doing that system, but the system is still paying you. That is the power of residual income. That is the power of cash flow creation. That is the power of shifting your financial situation. The only question you have to answer for yourself is, when are you going to start? When are you going to begin? When are you going to allow yourself to have true cash flow coming in. Because if you continue to focus solely on working harder to increase your income, you're going to continue to lose the opportunity to work smarter and increase your cash flow. I want to give you a journal task for you to do to help you, right? In your journal, I want you to write this question: what currently produces income for you while you're sleeping? Now, I know you might hear that question and even feel a little bit intimidated. Oh, but Samuel, like, I don't have anything producing income for me whilst I'm sleeping. Then write the answer nothing. But just remember to write after the word nothing, right now. So that you can inspire yourself, you can encourage yourself to be someone who's going to make the change. Because if you're someone who's been plagued with working harder instead of building systems harder, then nothing's going to change until you start to change. Nothing's going to change until you recognize what's creating your financial demise. And your financial demise doesn't have to keep happening. You can shift the tables. You can switch the scale. You can make things work in a way where your finances begin to prevail. But in order to do that, you have to be someone who makes your effort start to bleed into your systems. And your systems start to acquire and accrue your assets. And your assets start to dispense your cash flow so that your cash flow can finally, again, deliver to you freedom. And the only way that's going to happen is when you start by asking yourself the hard questions, like the one I'm encouraging you to go through in your journal. What currently produces income for you whilst you sleep? And if the answer is nothing right now, it's okay. If the answer is just a few properties with a little bit of rent right now, it's okay. Why? Because the starting line doesn't always have to be the finish line. If this resonates with you, I want you to write the word freedom in the comments below so I know that this is something that's going to help you start to produce cash flow. Because as I often say, I want you to remember, small keys open big doors. It's the small keys that you might pick up in a video like this, in a live like this, in a session like this, that allow you to literally start to open the big doors. And if you're someone who's watching this on a replay, I want you to be thinking about that for yourself as well. What are the small keys I need to open the big doors? Where will I get the small keys I need in order to succeed? Because I submit to you that this is one of those small keys for you to stop working so hard, investing, injecting effort, when instead you can start to build systems that in and of themselves will inject and provide the effort and energy for you to succeed. If you guys are getting value, throw the number 5 in the chat as we jump into mistake number 5. Mistake number 5, mistake number 5, as we jump into mistake number 5, which is my favorite mistake of the 5 mistakes I watch people make. Now, if you're someone who's consuming the seed instead of planting it, you are someone who's making one of the most categorical mistakes, which stops people taking good incomes and producing great wealth. Now, I want you to understand that every pound that you and I have actually carries a future within inside of it. Like within that pound, that dollar, that euro, there's a future, a whole future inside of that pound. Now, the question is, are you allowing that pound's future to materialize? Are you allowing that pound's future to realize? Or are you stifling the growth of that pound's future because of something you see in your eyes? Consuming the seed instead of planting the seed because of an attitude which is simply called greed is the big mistake many people make. Now, the question is whether you'll consume or whether you will cultivate. And this is something that most of us don't ever even think about. We don't ever really ask ourselves, like, have I really sat down with a pen, paper, and a pad and started to outline my plan of how I'm going to cultivate the seed I have? Have I ever thought to myself, every pound that comes in should go in this direction to make sure I win? I remember a number of years ago, around 2005, I was listening to Jim Rohn, and he said, what should a child do with $1? And he started to break down in his seminar all the things he thought was a good idea for a child to do with $1. And I remember thinking to myself, all those years back in 2005, that makes sense. I should have a financial system. I should have a way to know when a pound comes in, this is the directions it's going to go. And it was literally following that framework that allowed me to build up and develop my own first financial system that I started using for a number of years, even into my first years being married. And the reason why is because I recognized and also resonated with that message, so much so that I started to see that every pound is a seed. Every dollar is a seed. Every euro is a seed. And the moment you start to recognize that it's a seed, guess what you're going to do? You're going to start to plant it instead of eat it. Because there's so many people who are eating the seed, focused on greed, instead of allowing the seed to produce all of the things they say they need. You see, in order for you to have what we call exponential wealth, it's going to require a few things. And one of the most important things it's going to require is planting the seeds you have, not eating the seeds you've grabbed. And if you're someone who's not willing to plant the seeds you have, you might as well now resign from desiring the kind of exponential wealth that's up for grabs. Because this is what's happening again and again to so many people across the globe. They're saying that they're struggling. They're saying they don't have opportunity. But as I often quote in the book of Proverbs, it says there's much food in the tillage of the poor. But the second part of the verse is even better than the first part of the verse. It says, but they're destroyed for lack of judgment. I believe that part of that misjudgment is seeing a seed with the eyes of greed, instead of recognizing that seed is supposed to produce everything you need. Because if that seed is planted and that seed is allowed to succeed, that seed will have to produce for you exponentially beyond what you need. Just think about it for a moment. A pear, you open it up and it might have 3, 4, 5 seeds inside. You plant one seed which came out of one pear, and that gives you one whole tree. But here's the thing that's so beautiful about the whole new pear tree. The whole new pear tree doesn't give you one pear back. The whole new pear tree doesn't say, hey, you know what, you gave up, the seed in your pear. I'm going to give you 2 pears. It doesn't give you 2 pears back. You see, that little seed inside of the pear gives you a whole pear tree with multiple pears. And those multiple pears, inside of them, each individually have multiple seeds. So what that actually means is that a fertile, healthy, flavorful seed gives you way more than what you may have thought you even need. You do the right thing with one seed, and guess what's going to happen? You don't end up with just a tree. You end up with an orchard for you, me, and the whole community. And this is the reason why so many people are suffering, because as I often say in the book of Proverbs, it says there is much food in the tillage of the poor, but they are destroyed for lack of judgment. So if you look at a seed with eyes of greed and you can't see that that seed was made to succeed, to give you and I everything we need, then what do you expect to happen? Your wealth is not going to be able to exponentially grow. Instead, your wealth will end up being extremely slow. You and I need to develop our souls to equip our money to be able to grow. Just think about that for a moment. How can I develop my soul? What things do I need to be learning? What activities into which do I need to be turning? What habits out of which do I need to be turning in order for me to become stern in so that I can start earning? This is what's missing for most people. Most people haven't realized that every pound carries a future. And the real question is whether we're going to cultivate the future in that pound, whether we're going to cultivate the future in that dollar, whether we're going to cultivate the future in that euro, or whether we're going to consume that future in that euro, consume that future in that pound, consume that future in that dollar, instead of allowing that dollar to holler, Instead of allowing that seed to go in the ground, yes, where it's dark, yes, where it's damp, yes, where it may even drown. But let me tell you what becomes so profound. As we allow that seed to go into the ground, as we allow that seed to get into the dark, as we allow that seed to be inside of the damp, that seed grows. And all that seed does over time is it produces for us a whole new tree with a whole bunch of fruit, only because we allowed it to create root. Why are we not focused more on investing? Why are we not focused more on allowing the seed to become what it needs? Why have we decided instead of investing, we want to take our seeds and start ingesting? Has no one ever told us that it's through the process of planting the seed below the ground that we start to get results above the ground that are profound? If you are looking for your next exponential production of wealth, I'm here to tell you something that I hope you start to tell yourself. And that is that you need to stop consuming the seed and start planting the seed. So the seed finally, ultimately, for the first time, can start to give you everything you need. Most people have never actually understood something that Jesus spoke about in the Bible. Jesus said something which fits so fittingly. He said, unless a seed goes down into the ground and first must die, that seed will not be able to come back again and produce the fruit, the tree, the things we need for the next generation. We need to get to a place where we start to understand how this works. The results are waiting for us if we will go out of our way and do the things that in the long term will pay. So you might be asking yourself the question, Samuel, how do I do that? I've only got a little income. How do I do that? I've only got my little job. How do I do that? This is how we do it. Start seeing your income as your seed and take the step to plant it. Plant it into opportunities, plant it into investments, plant it into your future. And watch when you plant it, it grow. Grow into new opportunities, grow into new open doors, grow into new conversations. And as it grows, don't be hasty to consume it. Wait a little while. Yes, that's just it being in the dark. That's just it being in the damp. That's just it being in the ground. But once it starts to grow, after a while, it's going to produce what we call a harvest. This is where we have the outcomes from the input. And when we get the outcomes from the input, guess what we should do? Replant. Plant again. Plant again. Plant again. Plant again. And plant again. The more you plant, the more you give yourself an opportunity for your results to expand. The more you plant, the more you give yourself an opportunity to go from potentially having a tree to having an orchard for your whole community. You see, if you're like me, if you're a parent with children who are banking on your success, I'm here to tell you something. Your success is a lot closer than you think. The moment you start to shift and see the seed as a seed instead of consuming the seed because of an attitude of greed. If something I shared with you has resonated, I want you to write in the comments the word seed. I want you to write in the comments the word seed, because I want to know that you are going to take away what we're speaking about right here and utilize it so your seed can finally grow. If you are someone who's committed to utilizing this. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Be the person who says to yourself, you know what? I'm going to make my seed grow. I'm going to do what it takes. I'm not going to allow my seed to be wasted or to break. All right, let's go, guys. Throw it in the comments. Let's go. Throw it in the comments. And as you guys do that, we're going to jump into, we'll do a recap, and we'll also open it up for questions in a moment. Let's go. All right. So one of the things I want to share with you to equip you guys is something I found extremely helpful for myself. And this is what I call the wealth conversion cycle. And the wealth conversion cycle is something I've seen for years with many of my coaches, with many of my mentors. I've seen many leaders use the wealth conversion cycle. And after studying a number of wealth creators, wealth generators, I said to myself, there's a pattern here. And I took it upon myself to start to study that pattern, not only in the books I was reading, but actually in the coaches and mentors that I was working with. And from studying the pattern, I started to see something that most people never see. So I'm going to share this with you. This is exactly how it looks, and you can utilize this to help you move further and faster in your future. So what is the wealth conversion cycle? The wealth conversion cycle is a simple cycle that allows people to take their income and turn it into what they really need, which is their desired outcome. Now, what most people do is they take their income, which they earn, and they take that income and decide to do two things. Some people decide to keep that income, okay, which is cool. If you want to do that, it's cool. Other people make the decision to allocate that income. Now, here's the reality. You could allocate your income to assets, you can allocate your income to liabilities. But the problem is, this is where most people live. Most people live right here. And this is the reason why most people financially are not where they desire to be. So the question is, Samuel, what do I need to do if I don't want to be like most people? Well, you need to shift to the other side of the wealth conversion cycle. You have to be someone who can get to this side of the wealth conversion cycle so you can start producing true wealth for yourself. Okay? So Samuel, what happens on the bottom of the wealth conversion cycle? I'm so glad you asked, right? This thing that we mentioned here, where we allocate, okay? The question is, what are we allocating? Well, that's what happens at the bottom of the wealth creation cycle. The first thing is we're allocating to acquire. We're allocating our income that we've earned, our revenue that we've earned, to acquire assets, okay? We're allocating to generate. Generate what, Samuel? To generate cash flow. We're looking for opportunities to allocate and to generate. We don't just want money to come in and then we don't know how we're going to win. We want the money that we earn to be money that we don't keep, but money that we allocate. And if we're good enough at allocating it to acquire assets and to generate income, guess what we get to do? We get to do the rest of the bottom of the wealth conversion cycle, which is reinvest. Reinvest in what, Samuel? More assets that we can acquire at our desire, more cash that we can generate so we can perpetuate our growth and our wealth to accumulate. And we get to do one other thing besides reinvest. We also get to repeat the process. You see, this wealth conversion cycle is something that after working with coaches, paying tens of thousands of pounds to work with multiple coaches, both in the UK, in the US of A, I started to see it again and again. I started to see coaches, participants, like mentors, leaders. Like I started to see so many people who had exponentially created wealth do it in such a similar fashion. And I kept saying to myself, like, this looks like a system that all of these people are working, but none of these people are sharing. Like, can't they see the system? And then I started to realize, oh no, what they're doing is they're converting wealth. And they're so focused, some of the coaches, some of the mentors, they're so focused on the way they earn the income that they haven't learned what they're doing to convert the income. Then I saw other people who were so focused on how they convert the income that they even lost focus on how they earn the income. And then I realized, like, the reason why most people don't have wealth is because most people stay right here. Most people are stuck earning income and trying to keep the income, instead of realizing that what they need to do is earn the income, not to keep the income, but to allocate the income. Allocate the income on what, Samuel? On the assets they can acquire so that they can generate income, so that they can continue to reinvest and repeat the process. This is how you have the financial lifestyle you desire. The financial lifestyle you desire occurs when you implement and employ the ultimate shift. And that ultimate shift is recognizing that income is not the destination. Your earned income isn't the end goal. Your earned income isn't the grand finale. Your earned income isn't the finish line. Your earned income is simply the entry point into the wealth creation cycle. Your earned income is simply the starting line into the wealth accumulation process. If you're someone like many of my friends and clients, then that means you're going to end up starting to live over here. This is where cash flow creators live. We live right here. We live right here. We live on this side of the wealth conversion system. We're acquiring assets. We're investing in things that generate income. We're finding ways to reinvest. We're finding ways to repeat the process. If you're hearing what I've shared and you're taking value from this process, I want you to write in the comments the word reinvest. Write in the comments the word reinvest. So I know that you now have a process, you now have a framework, you now have a system that you can employ and deploy so you can start to reinvest and live like the best, instead of have to struggle like all the rest. Now, I want to ask you a question. Again, if you got your journal, your notepad, your iPad, your tablet, your stylus, your pen, paper, everything you need in order to succeed, write this question down. It's going to change your life. The question is simple. If your income stayed exactly the same for the next 5 years, could you still become wealthy? You see, for those who have spent so many years trying to work harder at increasing their income, I don't know how they're going to answer this question. But for those who've recognized they need a system more than they need to work harder, I kind of have a feeling I know how they're going to answer the question. So I want you to remember each of the traps that are stopping you taking your good income and creating great wealth. Trap number 1 is thinking income is wealth. Income is not wealth. Trap number 2 is focusing on the temporary element of income rather than the more durable weighting of wealth. Trap number 3 is attempting to start adding to your income instead of starting to multiply with the systems that we spoke about later on in this session. Trap number 4 is focusing on your effort instead of focusing on the systems that can be used. And trap number 5 is consuming your seed versus deciding to plant your seed. So my question to you is, which one out of those 5 traps have you found yourself in? Is it trap number 1? Have you always thought that the more income you make, the wealthier you're going to be? You've confused income with wealth. Is it trap number 2? Have you been more focused on the temporary income of a paycheck than the more durable asset accumulation from wealth? Is it trap number 3? Have you been focused on adding instead of multiplying your income and your wealth? Is it trap number 4? Have you been stuck thinking to yourself, how can I put more effort into this job so I can get a pay rise, instead of actually realizing that instead of the effort, you need to be more meticulously focused on systems? Or is it trap number 5? Have you actually been consuming your seed instead of planting it for the seed to produce everything you need? Let me know in the comments below. What trap is it that's trapped you the most? Now, the reality is the next level of wealth creation for you is not earning more. It's actually about designing a better wealth conversion system. So if you're ready, finally, to build that system around your own circumstances, I want you to comment the word convert in the chat, because that shows me that you're ready to convert your income from the kind of income you've been making to the kind of income that nobody can say you're faking. Now's the time to take that step and say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to do what only I can do, because if I don't do it, no one is going to do it for me. So with that being said, guys, we're going to wrap up this live. We'll open it up for questions real quick. And we've gone slightly a bit over the time that I plan to go. So we'll set the timer to take the questions. I'll check through the chat for any questions that have come through already. So if you have a question about anything we've shared, now's the time. Feel free to throw your question in the chat. Now's the time. Feel free to throw your question in the chat. If you have any questions about anything we've shared in this live, feel free to throw your questions in the chat. Okay, the tea is done. Let's go. I guess we're going to drink the juice then. All right, let's go. So guys, now's the time. Timer's up. If you have questions, throw your questions in. What questions do you have? What questions do you have about the 5 costly mistakes that are preventing your good income from becoming great wealth? Now's the time. Throw your questions in. Throw your questions in. Let's go. All right. We got a question from Zach. Let's go. Let's take Zach's question first. Zach throws a powerful question in the chat. Let's see. Let's see. Zach says, hi, uncle. I wanted to ask, how much should we actually have in an emergency fund? This is a great question. Okay, so if you're someone who reads Dave Ramsey's content, Dave Ramsey advises to start with a $1,000 or £1,000 emergency fund, right? And then Dave Ramsey says, after you have a $1,000 or £1,000 emergency fund, once you've got yourself out of debt, start to build 3 to 6 months of expenses, okay? So that's what Dave Ramsey says, because he's kind of one of the authorities out there when it comes to speaking about debt reduction, speaking about savings and those kind of things. Now, based on what I've shared in today's session, my big thing is not savings. Like, I do not believe in savings. I believe savings is literally a scam, okay? So based on that, my belief around emergency funds, okay, is yes, you should have some war chest. Yes, you should have some cash on deck. I do believe all of those things. But I think more importantly than having those things, you need to have your money in a vehicle that is spinning off money. You need systems working for you. That's what allows you to take a sabbatical and know that if your employer doesn't want you back, you're going to be okay. You don't need to go back. That's what's going to allow you to do stuff like some of my students have done, like Prince, who was able to replace his wife's income so that when she finished her maternity leave, she didn't have to go back to work as a midwife. Create cash flow, create cash flow, create cash flow. And then that way you won't be worried if your money ever tries to come in slow. So although you may want to have an emergency fund, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having an emergency fund. My encouragement to you will be, as a priority over any kind of emergency fund, get your resources, creating resources, have your money making money for you so that you're not worried about what your money is going to do. So if that's helpful, Zach, let me know in the chat. If that's helpful, throw the yes in the chat so I know that's helpful for you and that answers your question. All right, guys, we've got 1 minute 47 left. Excuse me, or a bit less, 1 minute 42 left. What questions do you have? Now's the time, throw them in. What questions do you have? What questions do you have? For all of you who are hiding in the back, I haven't even gone to speak to you guys yet. For those of you who are hiding in the back, you don't have to hide in the back. You don't have to hide in the back. For your questions in the chat. What questions do you have? What questions do you have? What questions do you have? We are here to answer your questions. So let us know what questions you have. Throw the questions in. If there's no questions, it's all good. It's all good. If there are no questions, it's all good. But now is your opportunity to throw the questions in the chat. I don't like ending the timer when I give the timer. So I will give you guys the rest of your 58 seconds. But now is the time. If you have questions, throw your questions in the chat and we'll be able to answer each and any one of your questions before we wrap up for this session. I pray you guys got value. For those of you who are inside of the live, feel free to share in the comments. What was your key takeaway? What was the big thing that stood out to you? What was the big thing that you took away from today's session? What were you thinking that was like, wow, Samuel, I never even thought about this like that. If there was any point like that, let me know inside of the chat. What was your big key takeaway? If it was a big lesson, small lesson, just feel free to share so we can all know the value you're taking out of here. All right, so feel free to use the comments. Let's know your big key takeaway in today's live. Okay, now's the time for your key takeaways inside of the comments. If you don't have a question in the last 7 seconds. All right, let's go, let's go, let's go. All right, so the time is up. We had no questions besides Zach's question come through in the time. So guys, feel free to share your key takeaways. What are your key takeaways? What was your big learning from today's session? What stood out to you? What was something that you found that was maybe new? Or what was the confirmation? What did you hear today that you said, you know what, Samuel, I've been praying about this. God's been telling me the same thing. I don't know why I haven't been listening to him. All right. Anyone who got a lesson that God's already been trying to tell them, let me know inside of the chat. Let me know inside of the chat if there's any lessons like that. Let me know inside of the chat. All right. Well, with that being said, if there isn't any specific, profound insights that were taken from today's session, I pray you got value from the lessons. As I often always say, it's a true blessing to be able to add value to you guys. Please remember, small keys open big doors, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Good day, God bless. Let's go.